content is not intended to be a substitute for professional investing advice. Always seek the advice of your financial advisor or other qualified financial service provider with any questions you may have regarding your investment planning. John Mintz does not provide tax or legal advice. All decisions regarding the tax or legal implications of your investments should be made in connection with your independent tax or legal advisor.
Have you ever wondered why the rich get richer and others don't? Could it be that a small percentage of the population pay others to find, study, and execute on legal loopholes that exist with our financial life and make it easier for them to prosper? The answer is a resounding yes. This is the Secrets of the Wealthy podcast with John Mintz. John has spent a lifetime researching and mastering the financial loopholes that he believes should be available to everyone. Join us as we explore different strategies that help you get farther faster towards building and enjoying a prosperous retirement.
Hello and welcome to the Secrets of the Wealthy with John Mintz. On the last podcast, John alluded to what we're going to be talking about today, and it's going to be about Roth on steroids, which is very, very interesting. Good morning, John. How are you?
Well, most days my response to that is I'm doing fantastic. I might use a little bit different word today.
Okay.
I've got a lot of emotions flowing through me today. I'll explain that in a minute. And one of my favorite secrets of the wealthy, I do plan to get into here at some point over the next 3, 4, 5 episodes. But we refer to it as a Roth IRA on steroids, and that's why it's one of my favorite secrets. But before we get into that, I just feel compelled to talk about something that I'm really concerned about right now, and how I'm sure there's others out there listening that are concerned as well. And as we speak, Eric, on Capitol Hill, literally as we speak, they're discussing somewhere in the neighborhood between two different bills roaming around out there about $5 to $5.5 trillion of spending. And we all hear about it. We heard about it daily or all day, every day. But man, I have just gone through so many emotions with this, from being frustrated to being nervous for me and my clients to being pissed off. Which is about where I'm at today. So that may come out. So I apologize in advance if it does. And, maybe you're my counselor today and I'm just on your sofa venting here. I don't know, but I got to get this out of my system so I can get rid of it. And I'm sorry if the listeners have to be the brunt of my emotions today. But the part that got me is when multiple government high-ranking politicians have come out and said that this $3.5 trillion is going to be free.
Oh, okay. I've never heard of that.
Yeah, they said, don't worry about it. It's this spending that we're doing, it's actually going to be free. There's not going to be any cost associated with it. So I just thinking about this, I'm thinking, I'm gonna go buy a new car tomorrow, and I'm gonna come home, and my wife, it's just for me, not for her. And I'm gonna come home, and my wife's gonna be, hey, we haven't even discussed this. Why don't you go get a new car? Oh, don't worry about it. I put it on credits. It's gonna be free.
Yeah, that sounds absolutely reasonable.
Yeah.
So where are you living? Are you living on my couch now?
Yeah. I told you I was on your couch, right? So. Yeah, now for multiple reasons. So I'm getting to the point where I guess I am insulted that they are insulting our intelligence.
Yeah.
Over and over. Do you know what I mean by this?
Yes.
I mean, we already seeing the effects of the previous spending that we have done. I refer to it as inflation. I don't know what they call it. Maybe that's free too. But it is starting to eat into some of my clients and widows' pockets, and they're calling me, and I'm getting calls on a semi-frequent basis saying, John, we had this plan, and I know you plan, as I always do, for increasing inflation, but I'm worried it's going to be higher than what we planned for, and I'm kind of scared now that I'm going to run out of money. Now, when you have a widow call you, or a widower call you with that kind of fear in their voice, it gets to you.
Yeah.
And so it's been getting to me lately. Now, I'm going to talk about some of this stuff today. Just if for no other reason, I think it needs to come out of the darkness and into the light. As the old saying goes, light always overpowers darkness, right?
Mm-hmm.
At least it doesn't Star Wars. But, this $80 billion in this bill is for the IRS to police us. All right? And there's many different ways they're going to use this 80 billion, but here's the one that really gets me. They said that the banks are going to be required to report every single check that is over $600.
What?
So if you go out and buy your wife a couch and you write a check for that, or it's a debit charge or whatever, that's going to be reported to the IRS for them to potentially analyze and see if that should be taxed in some way. So for starters, let's talk about how much this is going to cost the banks to have to live up to these standards. Well, that's not going to cost them, right? Who's it going to cost?
Of course, that's the first thing I thought of, is the trickle-down effect of what this is going to cause for fees in banks.
Yeah, absolutely. They're going to have to start charging. We think we pay a lot for a checking account now. Just wait. So, it's obviously they're going to have to charge us a lot more or pay us a lot less, on interest-bearing accounts, which I don't know how much less they can pay than the 0.1 they're already paying us. But so I could go on and on and on about all the different ways that they are going to, watch us, if that's the right word. Have we gotten to the point where we just don't trust anyone anymore? It's just that we have to watch. We're going to have to review every single dollar that's spent. I thought the government worked for us, not the opposite. But so that's the first one. Capital gains is the next one that is under fire, if I could say it that way. I heard this example. So let's just say that there's a widow that had 3 kids, and she managed to, work 3 jobs, 4 jobs, as a lot of single parents do, and bought a $200,000 house. And then 40 years later, she passes, and that house is worth now $1.5 million.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? And so her kids have inherited this. She's worked her whole life. This is all she has to her name because she's never borrowed against it. She didn't have the money to save, but she managed to hang on to this house. Unfortunately, it's worth something. Well, with the changes in this bill, the kids are going to have to pay the taxes on the entire value, whether they sell it or not. Now, this has never happened before, ever. So, the kids obviously aren't going to have the money to pay that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what are they going to do? They're going to have to fire sell this stinking thing.
Yeah.
Right? And because they're going to have to sell it at least fast enough to be able to pay the taxes before the penalties and interest and everything else start ramping up on them. And that's just not going to happen. So they're going to have to fire sell this thing. And just so they can pay the taxes, well, by the time they fire sell it and pay the taxes, guess what's left for them probably?
Yeah, nothing. Hardly anything.
No, absolutely. If there is anything left, depending on the tax rates at that time. Right? So, and it goes on and on with capital gains.
So let's back up just for a minute, because I want to ask you a couple follow-up questions, and maybe you know the answers, maybe you don't, because maybe they haven't thought through this well enough to have these answers in there. But so what happens if you gave the widow example, let's say it's a family cabin, right? And a parent passes away and they want to keep that in the family. It sounds to me, again, like they're going to have to sell someplace that, kids and grandkids have probably really enjoyed because they can't afford to even keep it now. That's what you're saying, right? They'd have to pay the tax on that as well.
Absolutely. Now, there's many different variations of that, and I'm not an accountant, so this, but and I don't even, nobody consider this advice because this thing hasn't even, the dust hasn't settled on this bill yet. But whether it's a primary residence or a second home or investment property, or all of the above, Every one of those is treated differently for tax purposes, potentially. But where I was referring to the best case scenario, which is a primary residence, it gets worse from there.
Oh, geez.
So the most favorable tax laws go with the primary residence as always. So that's what I was discussing. So it's going to be worse than that.
Mhm.
So as it always is, whether it be a second home or investment property.
So,
Yeah.
sorry, another question. I mean, this is just on my mind because this blows me away. I had not heard of this. So what happens? I mean, right now, yeah, the housing market's hot, right? What happens when the housing market goes down? And I'm not talking, like an '08 or '09, but that did happen too, right? Where the housing market absolutely tanked. So somebody passes away, the kids have to now pay taxes on that $1.5 million home, and maybe they scrape up the money just to pay the taxes so they can keep that home in the family. And then 2 years later, the home loses a quarter of its value. They paid way more taxes than they're supposed to, right? Did they get a refund?
Sure. I don't think that's in the bill. No. I think in a previous show we talked about how we raise taxes lower taxes and cut our deductions, and then they turn around and raise taxes, but they don't give us the deductions back. So there's your answer. But yeah, absolutely, that's a scenario that at some point not only most likely would happen.
Absolutely.
Because the markets are always moving north and south as time goes on, right? Yeah, you could go on and on and on and on in so many scenarios, but a lot of folks out there hear about this stuff. They hear about it on the radio, or they hear about it through friends or social media, whatever. But I'm living it because I get phone calls from individuals, and I hear the fear in their voices.
Yeah.
Or on their faces. Some of them actually come in and see me. They're so nervous and scared. They come in and see me and say, John, I got to talk to you about this. If nothing else, hopefully you're going to make me feel better. John, hey, I'm 72 and I didn't think this is going to happen, but do I need to go back to, these are the calls that I get, Eric. And it makes me want to put my fist through the wall at times for, just out of concern for the people that God's placed in my path and that I'm responsible for. So I feel like I'm compelled to say something about it and to try to talk about it today. But let's talk about that capital gain some more. Here's another example. So I have a widow, and she's acquired some funds from her deceased husband, and let's just say that he's been buying stocks for 25 years now. These are actual examples. I don't name names, of course, but I don't just make these things up. These are actual examples because I see them all day, every day. So she's acquired this. He's been buying stocks forever. And of course, stocks have been, running hard up for 11 plus years now. And the actual gains on these, what we call non-qualified accounts, meaning they're after-tax accounts. So he might have invested $100,000 originally, but now let's say it's worth $1.7 million. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
So the way the current rule reads is upon his death, if that was his single account, if that account was in his name, then the cost basis on that would step up to the date of his death. So for her, now it's $1.7 million. So whatever it grows to from there is all she would have to pay taxes on. All right?
Mm-hmm.
If it was a joint account that him and her were both on the account, then it would step up 50% of that growth. Half would be she'd still be responsible for. Well, what they're saying now is, well, if your cost basis exceeds $1 million, that's just it. There's not going to be any more step up. So $2, $3, $4, $5 million, that's all going to be subject to tax. Well, that's not enough. So while we're at it, let's raise the capital gains tax rates. That's in the bill as well. So not only are we not going to allow you to step up upon the death of one or both individuals, and this passes down to kids as well, by the way, but we're going to raise the capital gains tax rate also. So I've heard anywhere from 5% to as high as 10% increase.
Wow.
And I just think that's the beginning of where it's going to, start and move from there further up. Because there are trillions of dollars there. Every time I hear the count, it gets bigger. But the amount of money that's going to move from the front end of the baby boomers to the front end of the X-Gen, I'm guessing you're an X-Gen. I'm the end of the baby boomers. 1963 is when I was born. It's somewhere between 13 and $20 trillion over the next 15 to 20 years. It's going to transfer from one generation to the next. A lot of money, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And so I think it's obvious this is an opportunity to tax that transfer. So, we need to be worried about that. And we need to get a lot more serious about tax planning than we have been. I mean, I think episodes 3, 4, and 5 were centered around tax planning that we talked about, our episodes on taxes.
Mm-hmm.
And I think when I talked about it then, I don't know how long ago that was, 3, 4, 5 months ago, it was, hey, this is something you should really consider and think about. I don't think there's any thinking. The thinking's gone.
Yeah.
It's time to take some action quickly. Ordinary income tax rates are supposedly going to go up to 46.4% combined tax rate, the top marginal rate. 46.4 for tax year 2022, by the way, under the proposal.
Wow.
39.6 plus a 3.8 net investment income tax plus a 3% surtax. Had it all up. You're almost at 50%.
Wow.
And by the way, that applies at an income level of $450 for married couples. Yeah. The tax rates on trust and estates is subject to being changed. I had a gentleman come into me, about a month ago, and him and his mother, who he stands to inherit, estate is north of 14 million. And right now, at anything excess of 13.4 million roughly is subject. Well, he's afraid, and this is his words, not mine. He's afraid that's going to be lowered to 2 million. So his entire estate is going to be exposed.
Yeah.
And so that's not in the plan. That's just the way he feels is what he feels is coming. There's a benefit for pass-through taxes from, for small business owners from their S Corp or LLC or what have you, to them personally. And that's put there for a reason, because small businesses of America, to a large extent, what drives America, right? And carries us through the good times and the bad. But they're now, in this plan, they're going to put a cap on the benefit of the flow-through deduction. I don't know if I should keep going. I'm just going to get more and more upset.
Well, I'm starting to feel why, you're talking about this today instead of, starting in on the Roth on steroids, series. But this is important. And I understand, why you got, so angry and so upset, because this is just, again, people making decisions without really understanding the people they're making decisions for.
Yeah. And the sad part about it is the ones making the decisions, to a large extent, they do it in a way such it doesn't impact them.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So, that's the really sad part about it. And I don't know. I guess I kind of needed to share this for a couple reasons today. And I could keep going. I don't think I need to. But, like I said, this is being discussed today. They were supposed to vote on the $1.5 trillion infrastructure bill yesterday. That got pushed back to today. They may or may not vote on that today, depending on if they feel like they have the votes to pass. That's why they pushed it back from yesterday. They feel like they had the votes to pass it. But I mean, we're already seeing significant inflation from the previous spending. We have over 10 million jobs in America today, waiting for somebody to fill them. So why do we need to spend more?
That's a great question.
I just don't get it. Why are we still spending if we have everything that we have people out there, we have corporations, small business owners that are dying for somebody to come work for them, and they're paying top dollar. My daughter, my youngest daughter, my stepdaughter, got offered a job at a hospital this last week. She knows how much in demand that industry is, so she countered. I couldn't be more proud of her, by the way. We talked about this and talked about how proud you are of your daughter before we got on today, which is awesome. And so I'm going to brag a little too. But so she countered, and then they came back and met her in the middle, and she was pretty proud of that. But on top of that, they said, oh, here's a $3,000 bonus too.
Wow.
Just to come show up.
Yeah.
This is how bad our employers need people right now. And so why is it we need to spend more? I don't know. I just don't know. But anyway, I'm going to end this today. I don't even know how long we've gone, but I feel like I need to stop and go, check myself before I wreck myself here. But I'm going to make a bold statement, Eric, today, and then, maybe close this out or try to close this out. But if more than 25% of your retirement assets are in questionable or in qualified assets. Now, to define that, qualified means it's never been taxed. So it might be in a 401k or a 403b or a traditional IRA or a SEP IRA, a pension plan, something like that. If it's never been taxed, if you have more than 25% of your retirement assets, I have folks come into me and 100% of their retirement assets are in this stuff. 100%. But if more than 25% is in there, you need to be scared. And I use the word scared on purpose. I thought long and hard about what word I was going to use for that today. And any other word does not do it justice.
Wow.
They are coming after your retirement. They're coming after it. And so you can bat down the hatches. Here comes the storm. We talked about it earlier, some of our first few episodes, we talked about the financial storm coming. Well, it's no longer coming, it's here.
Yeah.
So we can bat down the hatches and, board up the windows and do what we need to do to prepare. I'm doing a Roth conversion this week, another one. So I don't care what the taxes are on it. I'm just going to pay it because I know where we're going. So if you're not talking to someone, if you're not educating yourself about how to convert your taxable assets to non-taxable assets, you need to find somebody. I'm saying this, like I said, if I could just make a difference in one individual, one family, we've done a great thing. So I'm gonna try to end it there, just for the sake of my own mental attitude today. I'm gonna try to end it right there. But I do have some really good, positive stuff that goes with this and can help some individuals if they're looking for alternative ways to do those conversions. We're going to be talking about that here in the next upcoming episodes.
All right. Well, I'm not going to let you off the hook that easily. I know you want to shut this down, but before we do, I'm hoping that people are sitting there listening to this going, okay, if he's concerned or if he's saying these things, and it's a pretty bold statement, and if they've listened to your previous podcast where you have not really pushed very hard on these subjects, and now you're drawing a line in the sand, they need to reach out to you. I'm hoping they say, I need to talk to him. So what's the best way to get a hold of you, John?
They can call my office, and our direct line is 817-225-6260. All
right. Fantastic. I know it was a tough one today, but it needed to be said. So I'm glad you did. I got a little riled up as well. I don't like those scenarios. And I look forward to talking to you more about this in the future, hopefully with a more positive outcome. Maybe today they'll think a little bit harder before they pass anything. Who knows? I don't know. I don't know if they do a lot of thinking up there or not. Either way, I appreciate you doing this podcast. Thank you so much. And of course, the last thank you goes to you, the listening audience. Thank you so much for tuning in and listening to the Secrets of the Wealthy podcast with John Mintz. If you have not subscribed to the podcast yet, please click the subscribe now button below. This way, when John comes out with a new podcast, it'll show up directly on your listening device. This makes it much easier to share these podcasts with your friends and family. And this is a great one to share. We're not trying to spread any fear or anything else, but it's just reality. People need to know what's going on. And the more education you have, the more educated you are, the better decisions you can make. And reach out to John. He can help you make those decisions. Again, thanks for listening today. For everyone at the Secrets of the Wealthy, this is Eric Johnson reminding you to live your best day every day. And we'll see you next time.
Thank you for listening to the Secrets of the Wealthy podcast with John Mintz. Click the subscribe button below to be notified when new episodes become available. The information covered and posted represents the views and opinions of the guest and does not necessarily represent the views or opinions of John Mintz. The content has been made available for informational and educational purposes only. The content is not intended to be a substitute for professional investing advice. Always seek the advice of your financial advisor or other qualified financial service provider with any questions you may have regarding your investment planning.